Namaste, everybody. Welcome on yet another episode of Dha, a Life in Rhythm. I feel truly overwhelmed by all the response and all the love and all the messages and all the kind words I have received through from all of you, and it's really inspiring. And I'm glad that everybody is. Really appreciating this initiative and really supporting it. And many young musicians and young tabla players and percussionists have written to me saying that this is really very helpful to all of them. So I'm so glad that this initiative is really helping a lot of people and percussionists around the world. So thank you all for supporting us. Please continue to do that. And today I am extremely excited to be inviting somebody who is been an elder brother to me ever since I was a child, and I had the honor and pleasure of watching him perform. Even when I was a child, he was already such an accomplished tabla player, one of the finest from our country in India, and it's such an honor and privilege that he is able to join us today for Dha, a Life in Rhythm. Somebody who has been an inspiration to me, to all of us, and has been very kind to me always. So I would like to invite Aneesh Bhai on the show. So just give me a minute. Namaste Anish Bhai.
Namaste, Aditya. Thank you for having me in your series. And I heard the generous compliments you showered on me. Thank you very
You
much.
you have
I
you
don't.
have always been an elder brother to me, Anish Bhai. I have seen you perform and play since I was maybe 7 or 8 years old.
Yes,
And I mean, such an inspiration, and you have always been such a sought after tabla player for all all musicians all over our country. So it's really a pleasure and honor to have you on the show, and thank you
thank
for
you very much.
making time to do this, because I'm sure so many people will benefit from understanding your journey, because life in music, life in rhythm is never very easy, and it comes with a lot of hardships, a lot of challenges of various types and various kinds, and so please enlighten us with this journey. How did it all begin? And I'll let you just tell us everything you feel like.
Thank you once again, Aditya. And first of all, I hope you are doing well in the present situation with the pandemic and the lockdown everywhere. So I hope you're doing well, and so are everybody who are watching this with us. I hope they are doing well, keeping safe.
Thank
And in
you.
the States, of course, there is a different situation also now. So I
Yes.
hope you're keeping safe too.
Yeah, I just
Uh,
hope God has mercy on all of us, and
yes,
everybody is
yes,
safe
yes.
around the world.
Yes, yes. So, Aditya, like as was the case with you, I also started quite young. I started at the age of 6, and initially I was interested in singing actually. So I mean, when the radio was on, I would sing, and I had a little tambourine which I would drum on along with the singing. And yes, and then a family friend advised our my parents that why don't you enroll him in a music class, and he will get some formal training. And Pandit Nikhil Ghosh's class is right around the corner. We used to stay in Bandra at that time, and Guruji used to stay in Khar, and the class was run from his home and a place close by too. And at that time, it was not Sangeet Mahavarti; it was Arun Sangeetalaya.
Acha.
So we went there, and then Mataji, that is my Guruji's wife, she suggested that why don't we enroll him in the tabla class, let him learn the basics of rhythm, and by, we'll teach him vocal music also, because as you know, with the boys, the voice changes, and
Right.
so you never know which way you will go. So so that's how I joined the tabla class, and then ever since I've remained a student. So yes, so I started, and those were group sessions like any music class, and my Guruji's senior disciples would teach. There were several classes, which were run, and different teachers were appointed. So I moved from one teacher to another. And during the course of these years of classroom training, my Guruji was keeping a close watch on my development. And in fact, in the, I think, second year itself, he asked my parents whether they would have any objection if I was to take this up as a profession. Okay.
Wow.
And remember that I was just 7 at that time. I started at 6. And so they said it's too early for anybody to decide. And besides which, he should decide for himself what he wants to do. So we will keep all doors open for him, whether it's education, academic education, or tabla, or whatever else. And so he then said that you should send him to my place every day after his school, and so that he is in this musical environment. And so that's what happened. So I used to have morning school at that time, I remember. And after doing my homework and everything, at the dot of 3, I would be there and stay there till late evening. I would be practicing with his children, his sons and daughter. And that's how my exposure to accompaniment also grew, and in fact started quite early because of that. And then because the other classes were going on, star class, vocal class, so Guruji used to say, go and request the tabla player that you would like to play a little bit. So of course I used to be very conscious and uneasy, but by and by I did that, and the senior teachers would humor me, and so yes, so that's how the exposure grew. And during the course of this, of course, many musicians would come and meet my Guruji, and even later, of course, at the institution. So I was witness to many such moments. In fact, I remember seeing Tirkwa Khan Sahab thrice, actually.
Wow.
Very short visits, but I still remember that. And of course, I also heard 3 of his solos at
Wow.
the annual function of the music school. So yeah, these were really memorable experiences. And then and sometimes Guruji would also, because I was there at their place virtually every day, including Sundays. So so he would sometimes, when he was practicing, or he would specifically say that, okay, practice this bowl, something like that. And so that passion for Rias also grew because of that. And subsequently, after I finished my SSC, that's my 10th grade, he said, now you should learn directly from me.
Wow.
And so that's how it started, and it continued for a good 15 years or so. So
Wow.
yes, and I was very fortunate to have been accepted as a disciple. And yeah, so all that Gandaban ceremony and everything was done after a few years. And so yes, that's how
So, so,
essentially that.
so during that during that time, from school to 10th grade, from childhood to from 7-year-old to 10th grade, was there any conflict in your mind as to what am I really doing? Is this I really love doing? or I want to pursue academics, or during that time, did you feel like maybe I will just do it, and then a few years later, let's see how it goes. So what was that thought process, as because at that age, we, like you said, we cannot just decide if this is going to be a profession.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
and
So
especially I think, I mean, if you can share more about your parents. I'm
yes,
not
I
aware
will.
if they were musicians or they were music lovers, because
Yes,
it's a very different
yes, yes,
atmosphere when we are we have parents who
yes,
are musicians versus
yes,
parents who are music lovers.
yes. So I
So
come from a family, not from a family of hereditary musicians. My parents were music lovers. My father is no more, but my mom still continues to listen to a lot of music. And particularly her family, they were patrons of music also. So for, like I still remember, my mom says that for her elder brothers, Munje, the thread ceremony.
thread ceremony.
So there was a 3 day concert series. One day was Bhai Sundrabai, one day was Hirabai Barodekar, and one day was Menka Bai Shirodkar. That means Shobha Guruji's mother.
Kya
So, so you can imagine the kind of patronage, the love for music that they had. And my mother and some of her siblings had learnt music to a certain extent. My mother had also had a few lessons of tabla as well. so,
Acha.
uh, so,
Good to know
so
all
that
this. It's so wonderful to know all this, because I
yes,
mean,
yes,
without some streak of music, it's
yes,
not possible that we all pursued this so
yes, and
passionately.
also my parents have been kind of mavericks, so my father was a journalist, an author, trade unionist, a political activist. He had taken part in the freedom movement, also quit India movement. So
Wow.
that side. And then my mom also had taken part in trade union movement. Then she was a lawyer, practicing lawyer. So,
Wow.
so yeah, so all these things put together, we've been quite a maverick family. Like my eldest sister, she retired as acting Chief Justice of Calcutta High Court,
Wow.
So,
Wow.
and my second sister is at Yale. She's a scientist.
Oh,
So you can
wonderful.
imagine. So my parents never laid down any restrictions for any of us. You do what you want to, just follow your passion, basically.
Exactly.
And that's the best thing. And in a sense, my parents are my first mentors. So
Always. Always.
not only because they encouraged me to pursue what I loved most, but also they helped me negotiate whatever challenges were there in the process. And we probably will come to that
Yeah. Yeah.
while we are talking. But that is very important because, sometimes when you're I imagine when you're in a hereditary musician family, things are taken for granted, that this is the way it is.
Right.
So,
Right.
so in a sense, we were outsiders. Now I'm an insider, but at that time we were outsiders. So uh, some things seem strange, and some things, to tell you very honestly, they still seem a little strange to me. But so I try to kind of change those things when I'm teaching my students
Right.
and discussing things with them. But so that apart, my parents, as I said, encouraged me right through, uh, and the entire family. And then when I got married, and Shubha's family also, everybody, so that family environment is so important, and I really cherish that.
So during that time, again, as a young
Oh,
teenager.
you were asking me about the conflict.
Yeah,
So so
so
so
as a
because
young
of this,
teenager,
yes,
there are so many, distractions or attractions at that
yes,
age. So,
Yeah,
pursuing tabla, or when did your inner calling, was it towards
yes,
academics, or was it
yes,
toward, because you said your parents were, extremely highly educated and very
yes,
accomplished,
yes,
right?
yes.
So,
So unfortunately or fortunately, there weren't too many distractions at that time. There was the only channel on TV was Doordarshan,
Doordarshan.
the black and white days, and Akashvani, Bombay A and Bombay B, and Vivid Bharati were the only stations. There was no FM or anything. So those were the distractions or attractions, and but I never really, to tell you very frankly, I never had any conflict because my schoolmates still remember this, that in seventh grade, you have
Annual
these
day, annual days,
Nibandh Lekhan uh, in the Hindi class or Marathi class. So in the
comprehension writing.
yes, so this was composition, essay writing.
Yes, yes.
मैं बड़ा होकर क्या बनूंगा? And so I said, I want to be a musician. And
Wow,
another friend wrote he wants to be a chef. And believe it or not, both of us did what we wanted to.
that's wonderful.
Yeah. So
Wonderful.
really speaking, I really didn't know what was academically laid out for me after the 10th grade, but I knew that tabla was definitely there. So, and then of course, I followed suit. Everybody went to college, so I also went to college. I went to Elphinstone College, and then by then I also had developed an interest in history. Of course, at the school level, history was more story than history. But then I started getting involved in that subject. So I wanted to do, if I go to college, I must do arts. And if I do arts, I want to major in history. So that's another, decision that I had made
Wow.
in terms of academics. So then I did my graduation alongside tabla, rias, talim, everything, and by then I started performing pretty early, 8 or 9, because in the music school they used to have those functions, periodical functions. So they would have children's programs, and so I was part of that, and slowly and steadily I kind of got used to performing in public as well. And then while I was in college, then I started doing Uvarni programs on radio.
Radio.
Those used to be 6 minutes. You had to wrap up everything in 6 minutes. And prior to that, there was a children's program on television. It used to be called Kill Bill.
Kill Bill.
So yes, and at that time, Suhasini Murgaokarji was the producer of that. Eminent theater artist. So I remember having gone for that audition, and Kashinath Mishra ji, he was a staff artist there. So
Yes.
he and several other people were there, and they said, "Yeah, he's good. We can feature him." So it was just a ad hoc kind of thing. So she said, "Okay, come after 2 or 3 days for the, it was a live telecast." And she said, "Well, bring one more boy. So you'll do a jugalbandi." So then I went to the class, and I asked the teacher, Eknath Pimpleji, my senior Guru Bhai also, and I studied under him too in the class. So, and then he asked another boy who's now in the States. His name is Jagdeep Bijwaria. So both of us rocked up there and did our little thing.
That's
So
wonderful.
funny moments.
Great. Great.
So
So,
yeah, so there was no conflict. There
no
was no
conflict.
conflict.
That's wonderful. So during that time, I mean, how were the talim sessions with Guruji? When you actually started studying under him, after your 10th grade.
Yes.
I'm sure that was a transition, from Guru
Yes.
Bhai
Yes. Absolutely.
to
Absolutely.
studying with Guruji, and such a learned,
Yes.
such a
Yes.
knowledgeable
Yes.
encyclopedia he was,
Yes. Yes.
of gharanas. So how was that talim session? Because I mean, we've heard and we've seen that he had knowledge of all the gharanas. He was he
Yes.
So how was that training? I mean, especially the talim one-on-one.
Yes,
How can you
yes,
share
yes.
those details with us?
So at most times um, it was just personal. There was nobody else.
One-on-one,
Uh,
basically.
One on one, yes. And um, Guruji's normal schedule was a way different from. Rather, his schedule was different from a normal human being schedule. So, so he would go to bed really late. He would rise a little late, and then everything was, postponed. So, so
I can
likewise,
completely relate to that. So
yes. Now we all can. Now we all can. So, so his own Rias would take place around 10:30, 11 at night, and
oh
yeah, and that's when talim would happen. So
wow.
yes, so it would go on, and then so by the time I would get back home, it was like 1:30 or something like that. So so it was always in the dead of night, and unless it was on a Sunday at his own home, then it would be a little earlier. But little earlier means 8:30, 9:30 like that. So and it wasn't like when you're in a class you go twice a week and 1 hour session or whatever, and that's it, pack up, go. And so here the talim was not so often, like it was not on a weekly basis. Okay, it would be any time he had mood. He had the mood. And I mean, I used to, of course, pester him, that when should I, and then he would say that ask me on so and so day. Then I would go back and ask, and there's no question of calling up and asking. I mean, that was absolutely unheard of. So so it was a good testing time for my endurance also, in retrospect, I feel. And uh, and but other than that, even if I didn't have talim, I was still going almost every day. By now, then he used to be primarily in the music school, which was at Jew Scheme. So I would, after my college, I would go there and stay there till late at night. And one major thing that worked to my advantage was that even if there was no talim, his practice continued almost every day. He would sit with a harmonium player. And probably I was the one of the fewest, or maybe the only one, who was allowed to sit in on those Rias sessions. So I
Wow.
got to hear a lot, and so the music really sunk in. And so during those sessions, then he would sometimes ask me, "Do you have this composition?" So I would say no. So okay, learn it now. Uh, and then he would say, "Bring the tabla," and so then it used to break into a talim then.
Wow.
So yeah, so this went on for years and years and years, and that mm, that's the difference between a guru and and a music teacher in a school situation, which is not to downplay their role, uh, but uh, for the disciple, the guru is one who actually shares a passion for the subject. Uh, and as Dr. Ashok Ranade would say, transforms um, information to knowledge and knowledge to wisdom.
True.
You know,
True. Very true.
and here was Pandit Nikhil Ghosh, who was handing down this wisdom which he had received. He was the inheritor of through generations of musicians. So so I was very fortunate to have inherited a little bit of that.
So with those one-on-one sessions, which would happen, periodically, or whenever a Guruji was in the mood to do, and
Yes.
what were the points that he emphasized on about playing, or about gharanas or compositions? What was his thought process, and what did he impart to you, that that you are now imparting to the next generation? So what was that real thought process like, with so much of information that he
Yes,
had, so
yes,
much of
yes,
talim, and so much of life in music, that he totally
yes.
was so immersed? So what was discussed? What was his way of teaching you? What
So
was?
one thing is that, of course, I'll first talk about the actual talim sessions. So it was not that half an hour was distributed to how to do riyaz, half an hour was for this. Or
Correct.
it was just a
Correct.
mix of things, as it flowed. But primarily, of course, content. That means the repertoire part
Hmm.
was handed down. And when I say repertoire, it was not just reciting a bandish and getting me to learn it by heart, but uh, but the actual nikas, and according to that particular gharana's nikas, as
Correct.
he had learned it,
Correct.
and as he was also interpreting it. Then,
Correct.
if a particular bandish needed specific kind of riyaz, then to say that, okay, dissect the bandish and take out this out of context, and practice this phrase over and over again. He was very emphatic about riyaz happening in front of a mirror, riyaz happening with a metronome.
Wow.
So all these things were very much
And in those
part.
days, in
Yes,
those
yes, yes,
days,
yes, 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 yes.
so I
But
mean, so
I
much
have heard
ahead.
even, yeah, I have heard even about Tirupakha Khan Sahib, that Purushottam Valavalkar ji,
The
great
great
harmonium
harmonium
player.
player. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. So he told me, as a child he had seen Tirupakha Khan Sahib in the Gandharva Natak company, with Bal Gandharva. So he said when he was not playing, so there were thrice a week they would have shows, Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday, I think. But the other days were devoted all to practice,
Practice.
and there was a mirror there.
Wow.
There was a mirror there. Yeah. So even those greats had done that. So, and you can see when he is sitting. I mean, he fortunately he is one of the seniors who has been captured on perhaps all formats. So,
Right.
and you can see the way he a very regal kind of presence. So, so yeah, coming back to the talim sessions, as I said, repertoire and riyaz towards repertoire, then also just mechanical stamina building, etc. That was taught. Sometimes, if let's say, and because I used to accompany even in the periodical programs, so after the program he would point out certain things. Sometimes he would point out even during the program. I would be like mortified, absolutely. Like he used to say, play something, or sur is not good or whatever. So you had to do all that right there, and you couldn't complain, obviously. And so yeah, so this was the kind of pointers that he gave even outside the talim session. Then, because he himself had studied the melodic aspect, he had studied vocal music. He used to play fantastic harmonium also. So, so he was very emphatic about the fact that I should be. He always used to say, "I want you to be a complete musician, not just a tabla player." So you must know about the melodic aspect, rag, and you must know some vocal compositions also. So I used to simultaneously learn a few compositions too, and so it was a very comprehensive kind of. In the later part of his life, he would talk a lot about, even if the talim actually didn't happen in terms of transferring actual material like qaidas and this and that, but he would talk about let us say, philosophy of music. So, what he felt about tal, and how he felt tal should be negotiated. So for instance, when you're playing solo in a tal other than teen tal, whether solo should be played in all tals was a question that he would ask, and he was a firm believer in in an idea that tal should not be divided into equal parts. If if the tal itself, the theka itself is not like that, the vibhags are not like that. Let's say jab tal is 2-3-2-3.
Correct.
Then why should it be 2.5, 2.5, 2.5, 2.5? So so that so if you have to play solo like that, then it's a different challenge then. So you have to think, and you have to think of the poetry of the bowls accordingly. And so these were things that, like in Rupak, he would say, because tin is on the sum,
Uh-huh.
and the khali and sum are
Same.
coincide.
Mm-hmm.
So you should look at that tal differently. And really, I didn't know what he was saying at that time, and but I worked on it to an extent, and then he said, okay, now you're on the right path. And he said an important thing, just as there's beauty in symmetry, there's beauty in asymmetry. So you must be able to taste both, and enjoy both. And that's how he thought of these kind of tals. So he wouldn't play solo in all tals. So Jhaptal, Ektal, Rupak, Dhamar, he would play Dhamar. And yeah, Teen Tal, of course. Then he would play Nasruk, which is 9 matra tal, not like Matta tal. The theka is different. Then he would play Champak, Jai tal. So these kind of tals, So yeah, so talim was very varied, and the talk about music was very varied. It was not only tabla centric.
Wow.
Am I talking too much?
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
I'm enjoying it,
Tell
and
me to shut up
everybody else
whenever you
is.
want.
I'm so immersed in the conversation. I'm just trying to visualize those times. You must have had. So amazing. So amazing.
And so because talim used to take place late at night, he would say, okay, now you have to go home. Don't write anything now. Can you imagine? Like, you give me 5 guts in one go, and then he said, now don't write it now. You write it tomorrow. If you have any problem, you ask me tomorrow. But so that actually became a challenge for me to memorize, to
And
recapitulate,
to retain
yes,
all that. Huh?
yes.
But I think
So,
that was the norm in those days. Not many gurus
yes,
were in favor of letting you write
yes,
down compositions.
yeah.
Which
No, he was okay with that. He was okay with that because, I mean, he had established an institution where there was a specific kind of notation or everything. So he was not against noting down things, but it was just a practical thing.
So, Anish Bhai, coming to your own riyas,
Yes.
your own personal riyas, your personal space, that zone that every musician wants to be in, and that's really what makes us who we are. The riyas. So, what was that like, and when was that? When did that become extremely important to you? And I mean, how was that structure? How did you structure your own personal riyas?
So, I mean, Rias was very much part of my discipline since the early period, even as a child. And I would always have a harmonium player also
Achha.
come on a weekly basis, and then it became twice a week, sometimes thrice a week. So the presentation aspect also could develop. That was the idea, that it should develop, and so practice should be geared towards that. So other than my own practice, I would practice with an accompanying musician. Uh, so and typically, and this is something that I kind of follow even now, and I tell my students to follow also, that one is mm, the physical part, where you're building stamina, you're building speed, strength in your muscles, all these things. So that is one aspect of Rias. And the other aspect of Rias is looking at repertoire and thinking about repertoire, how it can be interpreted differently, what you have learned, and then what you would like to do with that. I mean, of
Right.
course, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes years and years and years to do that. But I'm saying that is the process that I keep following even to this day. So I kind of pay attention to both the mechanical aspect, as well as, or mechanical and technical aspect, as well as the aesthetic part.
So,
And then,
so you
sorry.
talked first about the the actual drills that we do to build stamina,
Hmm,
endurance,
hmm.
strength. So can you elaborate a little bit on that, Anish bhai? Like what
Sure,
what kind
sure.
what
So
kind of compositions, or what kind of phrases that were taught, by Guruji, or what you feel should be done, over
yeah.
over the process that you have developed, and you feel that I want to slightly deviate from what Guruji also told me, and this is what I think one should do.
So ideally, of course, you should be paying attention to all the basic vocabulary of the instrument. And
Yeah.
so whether it is tete or terikete or dheridarikete tak, or more pakavaja ang, like datakatitikatakadigan, like that, or tak, or dhenigana, or just baya strokes. Uh, all these things, they all matter, because
Absolutely.
all are used. And particularly if you are not restricting yourself to one gharana, and now none of us really are. I mean, we are playing, so it's very eclectic. So you need to be well versed and at home with all this vocabulary. So you need to practice accordingly. uh, so so whether it's, let's say, for instance, cricket. So if you're playing, let's say, a tukra or chakradar, then you're not going to play the delicate single finger wala tirikite. So you will play the three finger one. So I mean, that's how I've been taught.
Correct.
Everybody will not do that. So yeah, so you have to have that wazan as well, the weight in your hands. So I remember one phase in my years of practice, that I was practicing a lot of bold strokes and gut kaidas, gut chakradar, tukra, like that, and unawares, it seemed like I had developed a certain wazan in my hands, but as a result, um, probably even if I was playing things fast, uh, it perhaps came across as a little plodding, not in speed, but in just the, being too grounded. So, so then, and I didn't know what to do, and sometimes when you're learning, not sometimes, most often when you're learning from a guru, uh, consciously or at a subconscious level, you start playing like him or her. In my case, it was at a subconscious level. I'd never wanted to imitate him or anything. But it kind of was happening like that. And so he would use a lot of metaphors to tell me to change my route, So, and I couldn't. And I remember, so, a musician faces all kinds of challenges. Student of music faces all kinds of challenge. One is, I mean, the professional challenges are different, but the creative challenges uh, are of a very different nature. And so here was a creative challenge where, he was kind of telling me to find my own voice. And how am I going to find my own voice? I don't know. But what I did at that time, I changed the kind of practice I was doing, and I moved away from this heavy practice to Rela. I was practicing those things also, but I gave more emphasis to those. And by, I kind of found a place where I could balance the two, or at least I believe I could.
No, you more than have balanced it. More than. I mean, be it your luggies, be it your relas, be it your guts and chakradas, they've all been so splendid and incredible.
Thank you.
It's wonderful. So,
thank you. And another important aspect of Rias, I feel, and which I repeatedly tell my students to do, and I'm hoping that they are online today as well, so they'll hear it once more. And so I keep saying that Rias is not only when you are in touch with the instrument, but even without the instrument. So you can introspect, you can recapitulate all these things without the instrument as well. And you need to listen to a lot of music. And when I say listen, not just to tabla. Unfortunately, many tabla players, they listen only to tabla. During the days of cassettes, many tabla players would have snippets of concerts played with, different great tabla players accompanying Saro, the sitar, or whatever. And they had only those solo sections, in the cassettes, and so alap. So it's as if those solo sections exist in a vacuum. So I very consciously tell my students that you need to listen to everything, and
so
get it under your skin. And then you need to read about music. You need to expose yourself to different arts, so that the aesthetic framework is wide. Otherwise,
absolutely.
Otherwise, I mean, you can restrict yourself as much as you want. Like you can do only tabla. Then in tabla you can do only so and so gharana. Then in so and so gharana only your guru. Oh, and then and then finally it comes to only me. So but when you are exposed to this huge reality, then you realize that you're nothing. You're not even a speck. So
absolutely,
yeah.
This is like an ocean, and I truly believe that. We all believe that. So moving on from a life in rhythm, and being such a incredible tabla player, what really inspired you to write this book called Tabla? Not many musicians really find the time, or want to take some time away from their performing career or their own personal Rias schedule to contribute in a way that is such an important learning tool. I mean, today that book has been so helpful even to me. I mean, I read it, I think, about 8 or 9 years ago.
Yes.
I had got it off the app store on my iPad, and and in fact, I was asked to give a talk on tabla when I was in Sydney many years ago, and I was like, I have not really read so much about, tabla, that, and what do I do? So I'm like, maybe I'll look up the app store if there is a book. And then I was like, Anish Bhai's book is already there, and it helped me so much personally, that book. So much
That's very
knowledge.
kind of you, Aditya. Well, the book was came about as a result of my interaction with my students, I think, more than anything else, and of course with the lay listeners, because there were so many questions that people had about the instrument, about the music that it forms a context with, and I thought that as a performer, what do I want the listener to know about this instrument to make it a more enjoyable experience for
Wonderful.
them. Yeah. So the book, as you know, is not a manual of how to learn tabla either in 10 days or 10 years.
Correct.
uh,
Correct.
I mean, there is no tabla material there. There's no
Yes.
tukras or there's no
No,
compositions,
no, no.
but it's just talking about the instrument, what the instrument does, what kind of compositions are there, and descriptive and analytical in
In
that
fact,
sense,
you
but
have
not.
even, described how the tabla is made and the different parts of tabla,
Yes,
and
yes, yes, yes,
you've broken down that to, you simplified it for
yes,
any listener to understand that what this is, made of, what are the particles used. There has been,
yes.
I know those
But of course,
wooden.
Aditya, I must also add that there have been books written on tabla in the past as well, and particularly in regional languages. For instance, in Marathi we have
Arvindji's
Pandit
book,
Arvind Murgavkar's
Arvindji's
book.
book, Tabla.
Yeah, yeah. So there have been books on tabla, and even non-Indian scholars have written on tabla. So, like for instance, James Kippen has written, or my Guru Bhai Gert Wigner has written. So many people have contributed. So I'm not the only one, and yes, somebody has said Pandit
Sudhir
Sudhir Mainkar.
Mainkarji,
Yes, yes,
Sadanand
yes. And
Nempaliji, all have written
I
a
mean,
lot. It's
there's a huge,
amazing.
huge list, and I have mentioned those in the bibliography also. And in the bibliography, I've also included a discography in that, so the listener can go and a filmography too. So like I said, that I wanted the listener to have as rich an experience as possible. So that was the idea.
So, Anish bhai, coming back to your, your own career and your own life in tabla,
Yes, yes,
of course, when Guruji is around and we are, having talim and we're doing our own riyas. I mean, we are in a separate, different kind of a zone mentally. We're not yet worrying about the professional challenges that we are yet to face, right? We are
yes.
like Guruji hai, everything is fine. Everything seems like wonderful. Everything is hanky dory and wow. You know, and suddenly when we are like around mid 20s or so, and then you suddenly realize there's a realization, okay, now that I'm going to do this as a profession, am I ready to face all those challenges? Am I ready to learn the ropes when it comes to making this a livelihood? It's a whole different ball game, right? I mean,
Mm, mm.
to be good at your on your, in your craft and do your own riyas, and then suddenly you are like to be on stage and to be ensuring that you're doing sufficiently well, you're making decent money, you have a decent livelihood. How was did you come across that situation anytime that you were not sure if this is just a passion or this is now a livelihood, or was that like a smooth transition which you never realized when it happened?
Yeah, I think it was a smooth transition. Also, that I started earning through this pretty early. I started doing tuitions, and when I say tuitions, I started accompanying people. And I remember my earliest accompanying sessions would bring me 10 rupees an hour.
Wow.
Okay, 10 rupees an hour, and so there, close to my place, when I was in Bandra, there was a lady and her daughters. They would all sing, and one of them also played sitar, shenois they were. And so to accompany each one, I used to get 10 rupees an hour. So if three of them practiced on the same day, I would get 30 rupees.
30 rupees.
So yes, so 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 that was of course pocket money for me at that time. And then by and by, I used to go and accompany Nityan Haldipur. He was going to appear for his radio audition. So he had asked Guruji, "Do you have any student or somebody to come uh, and accompany?" So I would go on my cycle and accompany him. So likewise, I did with a few other people, and then I started teaching slowly and got some tuition fee for that. Uh, Fees for performance, of course, took a long time to come, and of course, then you are a young artist, and everybody wants you to be a young artist for a long time, and you also want to be a young artist for a long time, but so
But that
so
but that doesn't pay the bills, unfortunately.
yeah, that's okay. Nobody's bothered about paying bills. Somebody else's bills, nobody is bothered about. So, so, anyway, but yeah, so of course, uh, at the back of my mind, perhaps these things were kind of playing in the background, particularly when there was no transparency on the part of the organizer or on the part of the main vocalist or instrumentalist. When there was no transparency, when there was outright exploitation, then I wouldn't like it at all, And there were ways and ways that you could deal with this. So either you could have a fight, but I wanted to remain in this profession. So what I did was I would distance myself from that person. ठीक है, give them one or two chances, and then if they don't want to change their ways, forget it. Don't play with them. And so that's how I negotiated, and that's where I think my parents played a big role, because I mean we were not from a rich family, so obviously money was important.
Very essential, yes.
Yeah, and I mean it's important to the biggest industrialists. So uh, so yeah, but they kind of supported me and said that no, go ahead, you will manage to make it, and so those were moments that I really remember very vividly. And that's why I think it's very important to have that family support.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I
So,
also feel very fortunate. My parents, I also don't
Ari,
work from.
I remember seeing you at age 7 or whatever, and your parents bringing you to the concerts, and in fact, I remember my first interaction with you, and it really floored me because that's when I realized, oh, the world is really changing. Because I was at Dadar Matunga, and I don't know who I was playing with, but sometimes they used to have two featured artists. So I went down to listen to the second artist. After accompanying the first artist, I went in front and sat by Tug style, and you were right next to me in your shorts and t-shirt, and then you looked at me like that, and very confidently you asked me, "Your diary must be full, right?" And I said, "Gosh, this guy is too much."
I remember this. Now
Oh, you
that
remember that?
yes,
Wow.
now that I remember this, because I mean you were so incredibly busy at that time. I
Yes.
mean, so many concerts. Anish Bhai was everywhere. Every artist, Brij Narayan ji, Shami Ahmad Khan Sahab, Shiv ji, Kartik Kumar ji, everybody. With there's only one tabla player. It was either
And I
Zakir
used to
Bhai
do
or it was
morning and
Anish Bhai.
evening and like that.
It was Zakir Bhai or Anish Bhai at that time. The time I remember,
Oh gosh.
and it was. And I also remember this Navodit Kalakar Sammelan which happened in Nehru Center.
Oh yes,
And,
Nehru Center.
and I remember the time where every main artist, instrumentalist or vocalist said, "हमको तो अनीश भाई चाहिए, हमको तो अनीश भाई चाहिए." And I know Arvind Parekh ji had organized that, and I had played solo in that. I was maybe
Correct.
11
I
or
remember that.
12 years. But I
Yes.
mean, there was a tabla sitar player called Sandeep Apte from Pune. I
Yes.
don't know if you remember.
Yes. Yes. Of
And
course.
then everybody, Aarti ji, Ronu da, everybody,
Yes. Yes.
and
Yes.
everybody was like, "हमको तो अनीश भाई चाहिए." And it's so incredible, I mean, such wonderful memory. You must have
So
been
it's
about, early 20s, and I was like 11,
yes.
12. So
Yes. Yes.
I still remember those days, I mean, and I always, and I think whenever I met you, I always was in awe of you. And I mean, क्या बात है, क्या बजा रहे हैं अनीश भाई? It was always like attending your concerts, as much as possible, during my Talim days with Abbaji. So,
Yes.
I mean, I wish we could have continued talking and talking to you, Anish bhai.
Yes.
We're almost
Yes.
an hour, and we might just get cut off here. But
Yes.
I would
Yes.
like to request everybody, please join in. We are going to take a 2-minute break, and Anish bhai will be back with us with the tabla, and we will be very fortunate to listen to some of his demonstration and whatever he has prepared for us. So please wait and log in back in 2 minutes. We just going to give Anish bhai some time to set up his tabla, and we will see you right back in 2 minutes. Thank you, everybody. Please join us again. Thank you. See you in
Thank
2
you.
minutes.
Thank
2
you.
minutes, Anish bhai.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.